My 30-year-old spouse and I went to my 30-year-old closest friend Alara's baby shower yesterday. Since our time as college students, Alara and I have been great friends. After we realized how much we loved the same music, our connection blossomed beyond just being roommates. Together, we went to concerts and created a ton of memories. We were almost best friends by the time we were in our senior year of college, spending summers at each other's houses whenever we could. We each pursued distinct job routes after finishing our educations. While I'd always wanted to work at a prestigious law firm, I was able to land a highly sought-after position, but Alara wasn't sure she wanted a regular 9-to-5 job. She made the decision to look into making money on social media. Even though we had wildly divergent schedules, we always made time on the weekends to spend time together. We made time for each other, whether it was by going on a hike, dining at a new place, getting cocktails, or just lounging in to watch a movie. I first got to know Xander on one of our girls' evenings out. I knew he was the one for me the instant I laid eyes on him, even though he was at his friend's bachelor celebration. The reality is, that same night, we both fell profoundly in love, even though we frequently joke about who fell in love first. Thankfully, we have been blissfully wed for the past 5 years, and our union has been nothing short of ideal. I tell Alara all the time how lucky I am that she invited me to the bar that evening, because without her invitation, I never would have met my amazing husband. After my marriage, Alara stayed single for a while before meeting Mark, her present spouse. This year marked the two of them's second anniversary. I was overjoyed when Alara told me 3 months ago that she was expecting a child. I was so excited for my closest friend to begin this new chapter in her life and hug her baby shortly. Since I would be the baby's godmother, I felt honored when Alara asked me to plan her baby shower. We debated over a few themes before settling on yellow, Alara's favorite hue. I spoke often with the caterer during the planning phase to make sure everything went according to plan, and the cake arrived on schedule. It so happened that I had previously collaborated with the caterer during my brother's wedding, so getting back to work with her wasn't too difficult. We came a little early on the day of the shower to make sure everything went according to plan. As soon as we arrived, Mark welcomed us and informed us that Alara was still getting dressed. The cake wasn't centered on the table as Alara had requested, so I fixed it as I was setting up. The visitors soon began to arrive, and seeing some of our old college pals made me very happy. We used this chance to catch up and exchange significant life updates, because we hadn't seen one other in a long time. Alara, dressed in a bright yellow outfit that went with the theme of the baby shower, grinned broadly as everyone around her gave her congrats. As the program moved along, everyone settled down to a delectable meal. Before Alara signaled for everyone to pay attention, everything appeared to be going smoothly. She thanked us for attending her baby shower as she got to her feet. "I'm thrilled to tell you that my husband Mark and I are expecting our first child, and I have someone very special to thank for that," she said after taking a big breath. Mark was gazing at Alara with a perplexed expression as he tried to figure out what was going on. Then she declared loudly, "Everyone, let me introduce the father of our baby," gesturing to my husband Xander. I nearly choked while eating. There was a strange stillness in the room, and I could feel that everyone was surprised and not sure how to respond. My thoughts were racing, trying to figure out what was going on. Under the table, my husband, who doesn't like attention and is more of a recluse, firmly gripped my hand. When I turned to face him, he shared my confusion. There was a strange and uncomfortable hush as everyone's gaze was concentrated on us. Alara was the one I looked to seek an explanation. To provide some context, my spouse and I have been trying to conceive for years without success. We have had several tests performed and are dealing with personal health difficulties, but we have not been able to conceive. Only a few chosen family members and close friends, including Alara, have been informed about this problem. My spouse and I eventually came to terms with the possibility that we might not be able to conceive. We learnt to be happy with our lives together as a pair instead of dwelling on that. Alara outright lied when she said that my husband was the father of her child, and I couldn't help but take offense at her remarks. Tears filled my eyes, but I did my best not to cry in front of other people. Alara then started giggling uncontrollably and gave her husband Mark a friendly shove, saying, "I was only kidding, folks. All of this is really a joke for my Instagram. I have cameras all throughout the place to record your responses." I couldn't help but be annoyed with Alara for putting us through such an intense emotional roller coaster as everyone else stared about in confusion. I was shocked that my closest friend, who was fully aware of the difficulties we were having conceiving, found it amusing to name my husband as the father of her child in public. My spouse was still holding onto my hands and had a flushed face as I turned to face him. He was very humiliated at that time, I could tell. There was a general unease throughout the room, while a few people managed a nervous laugh or two. Alara's husband Mark, I saw, refrained from joining in on the laughs. He looked at my husband apologetically, more annoyed than amused. My spouse and Mark had grown close over the years, and I believe he was sorry for us at the time. I didn't want to spoil Alara's baby shower by confronting her at that time. I made a concerted effort to ignore the uneasiness that had crept in as she carried on with the baby shower activities. We played a couple games after lunch and eventually opened all the gifts. Alara was the only one who appeared to be having fun conversing with other visitors and taking photos for her social media during the entire event. After the catastrophic meal, my husband had already told me in private that he wanted to go, but I pleaded with him to stay. I told him that I would discuss this with Alara since I didn't want the visitors to see us leave abruptly. Mark abruptly got up and stood with a severe expression, so I think he was also uncomfortable with the party anymore. I sensed that something was going to happen when he asked Alara if they could go outdoors for a little while. The conversation was audible and visible to all of us, and it was evident that Alara's practical joke had caused unease in the room. I observed as their exchange heated up, and Mark's movements got progressively more agitated. Mark spoke up abruptly, his words resonating across the room. "I find it unbelievable that you would take such action. It's not simply a harmless joke. They are our best buddies. You also embarrassed me in front of everyone by making fun of our baby shower." Mark wasn't having any of it, when Alara continued saying that she believed it was just a harmless joke. Reiterating his earlier message, Mark told Alara to quit being such a baby and grow up, especially as they were celebrating the birth of their kid. The silence in the room had gotten uncomfortable, and we could all plainly hear what they were saying. My spouse told me he would wait for me in the vehicle and got up because he could stand it no longer. I couldn't blame my husband for leaving, even though I knew how devastated he was, and though my heart broke for my buddy. Mark must have seen how devastated my husband was when he saw him go away. He turned to face Alara, declaring, "I'm done. I've had enough of your immaturity. We're through. Although I can't be with you for even a moment longer, I will adore this kid." Alara started crying at this, and Mark left the celebration. We didn't know how to respond as we stared at each other in shock. My dearest buddy made my heart hurt, but I knew that just then my spouse needed me more. After Alara's tense talk with her husband, I too left the baby shower without saying goodbye, since I didn't want to face her. Upon arriving home, I noticed my spouse was rather agitated, and we were both in disbelief at what had happened to Alara to pull this practical joke on us. Later that night, Mark texted us to apologize, stating he didn't know she was going to record this prank for a video, and he was sorry for everything that had happened to us. We were happy that he got in touch, as we didn't want to be in conflict with him, and we fully appreciated his viewpoint. Regretfully, I received many texts from Alara when I got up today. She said that she was under stress from her pregnancy and decided to pull the hoax to make a viral clip for her Instagram. She asked why I went without saying goodbye and stated she didn't see why we were unhappy about it. In order for me to take her to her gynecologist appointment, she requested if we might meet today. As my frustration level rose once again, I told her that I wasn't amused by her practical joke. I told her that what she had done was offensive and uncomfortable for me and my spouse. I also informed her that I wouldn't be able to take her to her appointment that day, since I wanted some time alone. In response, Alara referred to me as a shitty friend for abandoning her at such a delicate moment. I was genuinely offended by this message, since I didn't think she would say something like that, only because I needed some space. My husband was equally incensed as I was when I told him about Alara's note. He advised against interacting with her until she realizes how serious her acts are. I made the decision to send her one last message, informing her that I wouldn't communicate with her until she expressed regret for her actions to both my spouse and me. Furthermore, I warned her that I will file a lawsuit against her should she post the joke video. Alara replied that she didn't think she had done anything wrong in place of offering an apology. She even went so far as to say that, because of her pregnancy, I was envious of her. I was astounded by what I saw when I read her response. I went above and above to give this woman, who had been my best friend for almost 10 years, the ideal baby shower, and she believed I was envious. I should set my emotions aside and help Alara through this trying time, even if she informed me that she would not be sharing the video. Her husband, she said, had not returned home the night before, and she really needed me. Despite my non-confrontational nature, I started crying as I read her insulting words. I had to make the difficult choice to block her without getting a response, after realizing I couldn't carry on with this chat. Given the hoax my pregnant best friend performed on us, and my satisfaction that her husband had deserted her, am I therefore at blame for not supporting my pregnant friend during her pregnancy? First update. A week has passed since my previous report, and a lot has happened. I want to start by making it clear to everyone that Alara is not one to make light of things, so I was taken aback when she decided to pull this practical joke on me. She has never played practical jokes on anyone, although I have known her since our 20s. Regardless, when Mark announced that he was divorcing Alara, he meant it. During their conversation over the weekend, my husband found out that Mark is actively looking for a divorce attorney. Ever since that day, Alara has not stopped messaging and contacting him, pleading with him to forget his love for her. She has tried to get in touch with Mark, but he hasn't replied. She even went so far as to accuse him, quite unexpectedly, of having an affair with me. His sadness stems from the fact that she is gradually changing into someone he no longer recognizes, which is the reason their marriage is ending. Alara couldn't get in touch with me because I blocked her, so she sent a long note to my husband in its place. He isn't much of a guy because he can't get me pregnant, she said, accusing him of attempting to destroy our friendship. Yesterday, after coming home from work, my spouse gave me the message, and I was enraged. I had been attempting to ignore it up until now, figuring that her abrupt behavior shift may have been brought on by pregnant hormones. However, her offensive remarks to my spouse were wholly inappropriate. I thus made the decision to discipline her. This implied that I was in charge of the baby registry in addition to being in charge of the baby shower. I had spent several hours talking to Alara about what she needed and compiling a list of necessities for the new baby. But not all of the visitors could afford the excessively costly goods Alara insisted we put on the list. I saw that some attendees at the baby shower followed the list, while others gave her presents that weren't on it, but would still be helpful for a new mom. I had intended to give Alara a few of those pricey items from her list, because she appeared unhappy. But as soon as she went too far and started threatening my husband, I canceled the order and removed the baby registry to make sure she couldn't access it. She would have to make one from scratch if she wanted one now. In addition, the caterer sent me a message a few days ago about the baby shower, but I was too busy handling Alara's predicament to reply. The problem is that I had already paid half of the catering service's booking costs as a surprise gift to Alara, and I had intended to pay the remaining balance after the baby shower. But I was sidetracked by these recent happenings and had forgotten about it. I spoke with Alara and the caterer over the phone. After all that had transpired at the baby shower, I informed her that I would not be making the remaining payment. The caterer was very kind, and let me know that she would be sending the final payment to Alara, rather than to me, because Alara had made the reservation for the food service in her name, and they had communicated before the baby shower. I was pleased that I wouldn't have to pay this person any more money, because she had publicly insulted us, and was still hurting us with her nasty texts. When I told my spouse about it as well, he thought it was funny. Since she sent that letter to my husband, I've thought about getting in touch with her, but I've determined that I'm past the point of forgiving. I appreciate all of the people that stood with me and showed me how harmful her actions were. I can remember a few times in the past when she made fun of me, but I never gave it any attention at the time. In any case, I'm going to maintain my optimism and let this incident go. I want to stop wasting my time and effort on her. Second update. This lady has no shame. A few days following my conversation with the caterer, I got an email from Alara. She came back with her crap as soon as I saw her name appear in my email. Despite the fact that I could afford to pay for the complete catering service, she called me cheap in the email. She informed me that I've always been conceited since I was born into a wealthy family, and that she was relieved that I was never able to conceive. She went on to tell me that along the years, all she had done was utilize me to help her. She then went on to repeatedly call me ugly and imply that I wasn't deserving of my spouse. She remarked that I was too unattractive for my husband to marry, so he married me for my money. I was referred to as a bitch by her for creating a rift with her spouse. She launched a barrage of foul language and basically called me every derogatory term in the email. When I showed my husband the email, he became quite upset. We have both gone above and beyond throughout the years to support this woman. When she was unmarried and in tears over her breakups, we were there for her. We have paid for her ticket and accommodation several times, and we have always brought her along on our trips. A time before, my husband had loaned Alara's parents some money and assisted them in fixing their home. She had always been regarded as family by us. My spouse contacted Mark right after and extended an invitation to supper so that we could talk about this. We showed Mark the email when he got there, and his expression was pure contempt. He also displayed texts that she had written him, in which she accused him of cheating on her and used similar foul language. The gravity of the accusations troubled us much, since it was not something to be tossed around carelessly or said out of resentment toward a spouse. I had just lately severed my friendship with my old best friend, and it was difficult to accept how much she had changed. Mark told us he had a good relationship with a reputable divorce attorney. On the advice of his attorney, he just saved screenshots of everything she sent him and never responded to her texts, no matter how insane or disgusting they were. In order to show his divorce attorney the email she had given me, he also snapped a picture of it. Since I first shared the tale, I've had a few direct messages from folks who expressed concern for Alara and assumed that her abrupt behavior shift may be the result of neurological problems. Just to let these folks know, even during our time in college, she has always had a temper problem. Even though I have never been the target of her rage, I have witnessed her lose her cool easily and curse at others, even in public. Despite my strong suspicions that it's not a medical matter, my spouse and I shall attempt to get in touch with her parents about this. We're going to tell them everything, including every email and message she sent us. It is entirely up to them to take her for a test if they think there is something wrong with her after that. I'm not going to answer her email or unblock her in spite of everything. I've done so much for this lady, so it depresses me beyond belief that she still treats me badly, degrades me, and disregards me. I'm going to move on from this whole thing and live my life with my spouse and our pets. To put it mildly, the last few months have been an emotional tornado. As my spouse and I are, I hope everyone is having a fantastic start to the new year. We are having a much-needed vacation from our hectic work right now, in the Maldives. We made the decision to take a break from work and enjoy some downtime in light of the year that has passed. We've been spending our days at the resort enjoying cool beverages and relaxing on the beaches thus far. Now for the much-needed update that a few of you have requested. It was to be anticipated that Mark and Alara would file for divorce. Mark's attorney presented evidence and their prenuptial agreement, which they had previously agreed upon, in a difficult court fight. Alara and her attorney tried their best, but they were unsuccessful in winning the case. Nonetheless, in order to protect the child's best interests, both parties must make arrangements to co-parent. We have recently found out that Alara had to return to her parents' home after we contacted them over her unpredictable conduct. She didn't seem to be able to sustain herself for very long because of her pregnancy and lack of appropriate work experience. She was forced to move back in with her parents based solely on social media. Our common acquaintances also told me that everyone swiftly cut her out of their network, since they didn't want to be a part of her drama following the catastrophic baby shower. Mark hadn't seen her since they filed for divorce, so he waited until after she was brought to the delivery room to see their daughter arrive. He has been happy to take care of the infant, see her whenever he can, and make the agreed-upon payments for the child's support. He still spends time with my husband on the weekends, going out for drinks or to play golf. After the baby shower caterer threatened to sue, Alara was left with no choice but to pay the invoice. Alara has sent me a couple more emails in which she continues to blame me for the outcome of her life. Her parents have taken her for a lot of medical testing, but she is in excellent condition. Therefore, there is no justification for her immature behavior. I'm hoping that she will make an effort to improve herself in the future for the sake of her daughter. My spouse and I choose not to allow this tragedy to have any impact on our happy and successful marriage. After a month, we put everything behind us and concentrated on our personal and work lives. Just as we did when we first started dating, we still make an effort to go out on our Sunday dates. I still receive the same thrill and gratitude when I look at my spouse as I did when we first started dating. Being able to share my life with him makes me happy. I would want to offer my sympathy to all the couples who have shared their struggles with childbearing. I want you to know that everything is well. We must have faith in the trip since life has its own ways. There are alternative ways to become parents if you really love your partner. But my husband and I have decided to concentrate on living a happy life together for the remainder of our lives as we find fulfillment